Ushio and Tora Season 1 begins with a description of the Fugainin Shrine, which has a long history and has been recorded since 500 years ago. A man named Ushio was eating accompanied by his father named Shigure. At that time, Shigure told about the holy spear stored in their shrine, which belonged to the greatest yokai exterminator of ancient times. But Ushio ignored Shigure's story. Then Shigure threw Ushio's face with a bowl. Ushio fought back and said that he was tired of hearing stories about holy spears and the yokai, so they both started fighting. Shigure packed his things because he was going to go temporarily to the Sea of Japan to forge himself, so he entrusted the Fugainin Shrine to Ushio. Before he left, he asked Ushio to tidy up the old books in their warehouse. While tidying up the warehouse, Ushio tripped over a doorknob that led to the basement. Ushio, who was curious, immediately opened the door until he fell into the room. While in the dungeon, he met a yokai figure named Tora. When Tora smiled at him, Ushio instantly walked away in fear. Then Tora said that only humans could pull out the spear that had been stuck in his body for 500 years. Now Ushio believes in all the stories from his father about yokai and the holy spear, but he refuses to help Tora and chooses to go back upstairs and close the room. Ushio then went to school with his two female friends named Mayuko and Asako. Arriving in class, Ushio, who likes to draw, seems to be sketching Tora. After school, Mayuko and Asako went to Ushio's house to ask for Asako's notebook, which was previously borrowed by Ushio. While they were talking, suddenly Ushio could see a group of small yokai flying around Asako and Mayuko. Seeing this, he immediately ran towards the warehouse to meet Tora and ask what the incident meant. Tora explained that this happened because Ushio had opened the room where he was, so the little yokai tried to coming in. Ushio hears screams from Asako and Mayuko and blames Tora for everything that happened. Tora said that Ushio had to remove the holy spear from his body so that he could deal with all the chaos that occurred. Ushio, who felt confused, obeyed Tora's words to remove the holy spear from his body, but Tora broke his promise and attacked Ushio. Unintentionally, Ushio, who was still holding the spear, could use his power. When Tora saw Ushio's change in form, he remembered the previous owner of the spear, so he was very scared. Tora tries to run away when he sees Ushio, but Ushio immediately pointed the holy spear while chasing Tora. Ushio and Tora saw that the little yokai had now turned into giant yokai that looked strong. Ushio then asked Tora to help him face the yokai, and eventually, the two of them teamed up to defeat the yokai. After the fight was over, Ushio returned to his human form. Ushio said that the spear gave a glimpse of its history. The spear was made 2,000 years ago to kill Hakumen no Mono, the strongest yokai and said to be alive today, and other yokai. In addition, the spear can give the owner the power to transform into a monster. After telling the story, Ushio told Tora to stay with him to kill the other yokai that would appear. Tora, who was afraid of Ushio's holy spear, then agreed, saying that he would wait until Ushio was off guard and he would eat him. The next day, Ushio went to school with Tora while carrying the holy spear. On the other hand, Asako, Mayuko and other friends are assigned to pick up books in the creepy warehouse at their school. Arriving at the warehouse, they all saw a stone statue in the form of samurai armor. While tidying up the book, they noticed a dark aura from the statue. Meanwhile, Ushio, who was in the classroom, was thinking about Asako, who was late for lessons in their class. Then the holy spear made a sound, so he knew something was happening. He immediately ran towards the school warehouse, but when he got there, his friends had disappeared. Because until the afternoon, his friends had not been found, the police came to Ushio's school and suspected that the 5 students had been kidnapped by someone. Tora then tells Ushio that the one who kidnapped them was a yokai, the Stone Eater. The yokai likes to take victims to his dimension to turn them into stone and then eat them. The 5 students could see the whereabouts of the policemen from the yokai dimension, but the police couldn't see them because they were in different dimensions. Then the yokai slowly turned them into stone. Finally, Ushio took the holy spear and broke through the police group to enter the warehouse. Arriving at the warehouse, he immediately penetrated the dimension of the stone-eating yokai. Ushio immediately attacked the yokai, but Tora informed him that what he was attacking was not his true form. The yokai caught Ushio off guard and managed to throw him down until the spear slipped from his grip. Ushio then returned to human form when not holding the spear. Tora prepared to run away because the dimensional door was about to close, but Ushio asked him for help to save all of his friends so they wouldn't be eaten by the yokai. At first, Tora refused to help him, but when he saw Ushio pleading with him, he finally agreed to save Ushio's friends. Ushio, who received an attack from the yokai, slowly turned to stone, and he gave himself up to become the yokai's prey. Unexpectedly, Tora held the dimensional door and shouted that only he could prey on Ushio. The yokai immediately attacked Tora, Then Ushio used the opportunity to summon the holy spear from a distance to come toward him. When the spear pierced Ushio's body, the rock broke and freed him from the stone-eating yokai's attack. Then he threw the spear to keep the portal door from closing and they could escape. But the yokai changed his form into a monster and attacked Ushio and Tora again. Tora tells Ushio that the way to defeat him is to spit on the tip of the holy spear and plunge it into his body. Ushio followed Tora's advice until the monster was defeated. But without them knowing, the fight was seen by many people, and even journalists recorded it. After that, Ushio returned his friends to their original form and immediately fled from there. Arriving at home, Ushio and Tora saw the news broadcast, and Tora was happy that he was on the television. Not long after, Shigure came home, and he told about Tora's past in ancient times. Tora was the most feared yokai by humans because of his strength. Tora, who loves to eat human flesh and is invincible, meets a wanderer who carries a spear. Then the two of them fought for 4 days and 4 nights until the man managed to stick his spear into Tora's body and seal all of his power. The residents built a temple on top of where Tora was sealed to watch over him. The man who became the head of the temple turned out to be the ancestor of the Aotsuki family. After telling the story, Shigure reminded Ushio not to open the dungeon in their warehouse. Asako and Mayuko came to Ushio's house to go to the painting exhibition together. Ushio always carried the spear with him. When Shigure looked at the warehouse, he looked surprised. When they arrived at the painting exhibition, Ushio couldn't stop admiring one of the paintings of a woman sitting on a dark chair. According to rumors, the male painter died after completing the painting and left the painting to his daughter Reiko. After they left, Tora was still looking at the painting, and he seemed to feel something. According to Tora, the painter died by cursing the humans through the painting at that time. The next day when Ushio left for school, he met his senior, a man named Masaki. For no apparent reason, Masaki beat up Ushio. Then came a woman named Reiko who stopped Masaki. Ushio, who saw Reiko, thought that her face was similar to the painting he saw yesterday at the painting exhibition. Reiko is indeed the daughter of the painter. After school hours, Ushio asks Reiko to be the model of his painting, but she refuses because her father, who has died, is currently calling her to die with him. Reiko tells Ushio that if he keeps following her, he too can die. While Ushio was following Reiko's footsteps, suddenly a truck hit him, but he managed to survive thanks to the power of the holy spear. It turns out that Tora knows that the incident was the work of a yokai. Then Ushio came to Asako's house asking for her help to persuade Reiko to want to become his model because Asako was in the same class as Reiko. Asako told Ushio that Reiko was once popular among male students because of her beauty, but her attitude is always cold to all of them. It turns out that Reiko always acts cold because every time a student approaches her, the student will have an accident. This frustrates Reiko and makes her try to end her life several times even though her attempts always fail. Then at school, Reiko told Asako that the student's accident was because of her. She felt that a demon was always beside her. Then when Asako was about to have an accident too, Reiko immediately helped her so that she was safe while Reiko left her crying. After listening to Asako's story, Ushio went home. As he was walking home, Masaki stopped him, who immediately hit him. The two of them fought, and the fight was won by Ushio. Then Ushio asked Masaki to tell him about Reiko. Masaki then said that he and Reiko had been friends since childhood. Reiko's father went crazy after Reiko's mother left with another man. Even before Reiko's father died, Misaki had come to play at Reiko's house and saw her father's cursed painting. The unfortunate incident that Reiko always experienced happened after her father finished the painting and then he died. The next day during gym class, Ushio saw Reiko standing alone. He invites her to be his sports partner. Reiko's father, who had become a yokai, came there because he didn't like it when a man approached Reiko. When Reiko's father was about to attack Ushio, Tora came to fight him until Reiko's father ran away. When Reiko saw Ushio hurt, she immediately ran away, saying she would end all of this. Then Ushio and Masaki chased Reiko to her house. Arriving there, they saw Reiko already standing on the roof of her house to do the unthinkable. Luckily, Ushio and Masaki still managed to save her, who still wanted to die to meet her father. After Ushio advised her, Reiko wanted to return to her house again. This made her father angry and brought Reiko and Masaki into the painting. Ushio immediately took his holy spear and fought Reiko's father until Ushio was finally caught. Seeing Ushio being brought by Reiko's father, Tora asked Ushio to ask him for help, but Ushio didn't beg until he entered the painting. Unexpectedly, Tora continues to help Ushio even though Ushio doesn't ask him for help. Tora immediately pulled him out of the painting. Tora entered the painting and injured Reiko's father's face so that he released Reiko and Masaki. Tora told Ushio to stab the painting with his spear, but Reiko stopped him and Ushio accidentally stabbed Reiko. Luckily, the spear had no effect on humans until finally, Ushio managed to destroy the painting. After the painting was destroyed, the spirit of Reiko's father turned into a human and ordered Reiko to find her happiness. After Reiko's father disappeared, the painting turned colorful and beautiful. Masaki asked about Tora and his transformation, but Ushio replied that he would tell about it later and then left him. At one moment, Ushio and Tora meet an old man named Umizato. When he finds out that Ushio is from the Aotsuki family, Umizato tells him that he is the son of a lowly woman who hasn't died until now. Hearing this, Ushio immediately went home and met Shigure, who was drinking. Ushio, who was curious, immediately forced Shigure to explain Umizato's words earlier, but Shigure just kept quiet like he was covering something up and left. It turns out that Shigure went to eradicate the evil yokai. After completing his task, he went to a shrine to meet the monks there. He said that Ushio had removed the holy spear from Tora's body, and the monks there panicked, saying that only trained people could use the holy spear. They were also worried that if Ushio continued to use the spear, he would not be able to control himself. Plus, now there was Tora, who was always by his side. The monks suggested that Shigure take the spear from Ushio and give it to one of the trained monks, but Shigure said that he would continue to observe Ushio. If it is proven that Ushio can't control the spear and Tora still has evil qualities, then he will kill them. Actually, the monks did not agree with Shigure's proposal, but their leader gave permission to Shigure so that the others could only agree. When he got home, Shigure immediately gave Ushio 1.2 million yen. If Ushio wants to know the truth about his mother, then he must wander and find out for himself, even though the journey will be very dangerous. Shigure changed his clothes into monk clothes and asked Tora to appear. He challenges Tora to fight against him, and Tora accepts his challenge. They both fight outside the house when it rains while Ushio tries to separate them, but they don't care. Ushio then uses the holy spear to stop their fight. Even though Shigure said he would kill Tora, Tora said he felt that Shigure didn't want to kill him. He noted that Shigure was the head monk of the special division of the Koame College who was tasked with hunting down the yokai. This time Shigure got the task of eradicating Tora. Ushio defended Tora and said that he was not as bad as before. Shigure also feels the same way as Ushio. Suddenly the four high monks came to kill Tora. Shigure protects Ushio and Tora and tells them to leave. Seeing Shigure being attacked by four monks at once, Ushio decides to help his father and fight alongside him. Tora tries to fight one of them, but he is hit by a binding spell. The monk said he didn't expect that the holy spear was used only to seal a weak yokai like Tora. Tora was angry and immediately managed to release the binding spell. Then he attacked the monk until he bounced off. Meanwhile, Shigure and Ushio looked overwhelmed by the three remaining monks. Then Tora came to their aid and defeated one of the monks, after which he and Shigure teamed up to defeat the two remaining monks. The next day Ushio prepared to start his journey and brought the spear. Shigure slipped Ushio's mother's comb into his pocket and said that his mother, Hizaki Sumako, was a very beautiful woman. Then Ushio and Tora go on a journey together. On the other hand, a yokai caused a plane crash at night. In the morning, Ushio and Tora arrived at the airport waiting room to go to Hokkaido by plane. Behind him was a woman named Hiyamayu who was sitting with a man named Atsuzawa. It turned out that the woman was the daughter of the pilot who had an accident. Atsuzawa said that Yu's father's accident was caused by a monster. Hearing Atsuzawa's words, Yu didn't believe it and left him. Ushio, who overheard their conversation, asked Tora what creature they were referring to. Tora replied that it was a yokai named Fusuma who was in space. Tora once fought Fusuma, but he was so strong that his lightning attack could not touch him. The weakness of Fusuma is the teeth of Ohaguro, or the woman who dyes her teeth black and fires. They were getting ready to board the plane when the flight was about to leave. Yu still seems to blame Atsuzawa for the accident experienced by her father. Ushio accidentally sat next to Yu and the two of them got acquainted. While on the way, Yu tells about her father to Ushio. Yu also says the reason why she hates Atsuzawa. It turns out that Atsuzawa is her father's subordinate, and at the time of the accident, he was driving a jet plane that happened to meet the plane piloted by her father. Yu, who couldn't believe that her father's plane was attacked by a monster, thought that Atsuzawa was the cause of the accident. While Yu was sleeping, Atsuzawa approached Ushio and told him the truth. At that time, Atsuzawa was driving a jet plane and almost collided with the plane piloted by Yu's father, who was harassed by a monster. When Atsuzawa was talking, suddenly the plane shook and it turned out that the monster was attacking their plane. Ushio immediately summoned his holy spear, but he could not just get out of the plane because it could endanger the lives of passengers. Then Atsuzawa immediately went to the pilot's control room and found that the plane's pilot was unconscious. He immediately took over the wheel and said he would not give up on saving you. Ushio then forces Tora to leave the plane to confront Fusuma. Tora, who turned out to be able to emit bursts of fire, managed to drive Fusuma away so Atsuzawa could control the plane again. Meanwhile, Yu now believes in Atsuzawa's previous story. But Fusuma came back again to interfere with the plane. Fusuma finally fought against Tora, but Tora seems to have a hard time facing him. Meanwhile, Atsuzawa asked the Air Force for help, but according to the Air Force base, their plane was not logged into the radar system, so their fighter aircraft couldn't help him. Then Ushio tells Atsuzawa that Fusuma's weakness is fire. Atsuzawa says that fighter aircraft can't come, so they can't shoot the monster. Tora tells Ushio if he can use his spear properly, then he can defeat Fusuma without damaging the plane. Ushio asked Tora to hold Fusuma and tell him with a flash of lightning so that he could stab Fusuma properly from inside the plane. Yu said that she wanted to help Ushio, so they both stabbed Fusuma. After Fusuma disappeared, their plane could be seen again on the Air Force radar. 2 fighter aircraft were sent to help them. Then Atsuzawa ordered the 2 planes to fire missiles at Fusuma. However, Fusuma has attached to the fuselage again, so the Air Force could not shoot him because it could endanger the passengers. Ushio decided to get on the plane. He and Tora attacked Fusuma together until he was thrown from the plane, followed by missile fire from the 2 fighter aircraft until Fusuma was burned. Before Fusuma died, he said he would rather die than meet Hakumen no Mono, who would rise because of the Holy Spear. The plane managed to land with the help of Tora because the plane's wheels were damaged. After the plane actually stopped at the airport, Yu apologized to Atsuzawa for her misunderstanding all this time. Atsuzawa told Ushio to run away because after that incident, many people would be coming to interview him. Yu said that one day she wanted to meet Ushio again. The scene then shows in the middle of the forest where a yokai named Juro in the form of a wolf is seen killing many humans there. Juro was stopped by the other 2 yokai, but he continued to run away. The 2 yokai said they should ask the Holy Spear holder for help. Elsewhere there appears to be a construction project. Then workers find a large rock in a hole that turns out to be a sealing stone. When the stone was successfully lifted, it turned out that several chests issued several yokai in the form of large heads with long necks. The yokai preyed on all the workers. Then one of the yokai said that he wanted to eat the head of the woman named Hizaki Mikado who had sealed them in the stone. The following day, Ushio watches the news about the incident on television. He thought that Tora had killed and eaten the project workers, so he immediately attacked him. Tora, who did not accept the accusation, immediately left and said he would look for humans to prey on. While Ushio was looking for Tora, he accidentally walked up to the scene. There Ushio saw an old man who told the police that the killer of the workers was a monster named Gammon. But the police did not believe the old man's words and pushed him until the old man's book fell. Ushio saw the contents of the book. There was a picture of a woman who was a famous spirit hunter in her day named Hizaki Mikado. According to Ushio, Mikado's face was similar to Mayuko's. That afternoon, Mayuko was seen traveling alone by train. Ushio panicked because Gammon would hunt down Mayuko, who had a face like Mikado. He immediately called her cell phone, but she didn't pick up. Finally, he and the old man went around looking for Mayuko's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Tora, who was already in the middle of the city looking for prey, accidentally saw Mayuko and wanted to make her his prey. Not long after, the Gammons managed to find Mayuko's whereabouts and tried to attack her. Luckily, Ushio immediately came and protected Mayuko from the Gammons. Ushio told Mayuko to leave, and then he fought the Gammons. Ushio seemed overwhelmed by the Gammons, so he bounced off and the Gammons continued to chase Mayuko until she fell from the top of the building. When the Gammons want to eat her, Tora comes to the rescue of Mayuko and tells them that Mayuko is his prey. One of the Gammons tried to attack Tora, but he defeated him easily. Then a Gammon tied Tora's body and told the other Gammon to chase Mayuko. Tora tries to untie the Gammon, and then he kills him. While Mayuko is seen being surrounded by the remaining 3 Gammons, Tora comes and the 3 Gammon together attack him. But Tora, who is stronger than them, immediately releases his lightning power to destroy 2 Gammons. One Gammon manages to escape and tries to attack Mayuko, but Ushio arrives and manages to kill the Gammon. Ushio immediately apologized to Tora for accusing him of preying on humans. When Mayuko hears that Tora hasn't eaten in 500 years, she gives him a hamburger which she thinks Tora will definitely like because it tastes better than humans. The scene moves to Hong Kong. It shows a man named Hugh dealing with 2 men, which turns out that they are yokai, who have killed many people. Hugh immediately attacked one of the men and stuck the spell paper so that the man returned to his original form and was destroyed. When the other men saw Hugh, he immediately recognized the face of the yokai slayer. When he tried to escape, Hugh managed to catch him, but he begged Hugh for forgiveness. When Hugh discovered that the two yokai had preyed on a small child, he was furious and instantly killed them. After that, Hugh left the place. Hugh said that the two yokai were not the yokai he was looking for because he was looking for the yokai who had hurt his face. Suddenly he saw a television broadcast that Tora and Ushio had defeated the stone-eating yokai. It turns out that Tora is the yokai he's been looking for all this time. Hugh then plans to go to Japan. On the other hand, Tora and Ushio still don't get along. Ushio attacks Tora when he wants to eat him while he sleeps. Ushio always knows when Tora intends to eat him because his holy spear always gives a signal to him. Tora then attacked Ushio's face, leaving a scar, but the spear could move on its own and wanted to attack Tora until he ran away. The following day, it appears that Hugh has arrived in Japan. When Hugh was walking through a park, he saw a little boy and his father being bullied by two thugs. Hugh, who didn't like seeing small children in danger, immediately helped them and even wanted to kill the two delinquents. Fortunately, Ushio, who was looking for Tora, saw Hugh and managed to thwart the murder. When Hugh saw Ushio, he felt Tora's presence nearby. He immediately attacked Ushio and tortured him, and then the holy spear attacked Hugh, so he stopped his attack. Finally, the two of them had a good conversation. When he saw the spear, Hugh knew the legend of the spear from his teacher. He immediately bowed down and apologized for his misunderstanding, and he said a holy spear wielder couldn't be friends with yokai. He also asked Ushio to tell him about Tora. Ushio asked why Hugh was looking for Tora, and then he told him. At that time, Hugh lived in Gwangju with his wife and daughter. But one night, when he came home from work and opened the door to his house, a monster suddenly came out and scratched his face. When Hugh entered the house, he saw a lot of blood, but his wife's and daughter's bodies were gone. After Hugh told the story, Ushio thought Tora couldn't do that because he had been imprisoned for 500 years before he finally freed him. But because Ushio is disappointed with Tora, who always tries to eat him and can't turn out to be good, he asks Hugh to kill Tora. After Ushio left the park, Hugh managed to meet Tora, and the two of them fought until the next day. Tora seemed overwhelmed when facing Hugh, while Ushio, who was in class, thought about his own words to Hugh about Tora. When it was school time, Asako, who realized that there was something strange about Ushio, immediately followed him. Asako finally threw Ushio using her bag and cheered him on. On the other hand, Tora and Hugh were exhausted but still continued to fight in the park. Then Ushio came to separate their fight and told Hugh the truth. Even Ushio shows a claw wound on his face different from the claw wound on Hugh's face, which has 3 claws, while Tora has 4 claws. Hugh felt annoyed because he had gone from Hong Kong to Japan but met the wrong target, but he still attacked Tora with spell paper. But Ushio managed to block Hugh's attack on Tora. Ushio hit Hugh's face to wake him up, but he attacked Ushio until he fainted. After Ushio wakes up, Hugh apologizes and admits his mistake. He plans to stay temporarily in Japan because many yokai from China has come to Japan. After all, the aura of the Holy Spear attracts them. According to Hugh, the yokai who killed his family was also in Japan. The following day, Tora seemed to have realized and wanted to prey on Ushio, but he did not attack Ushio after he saw many wounds on Ushio's body after protecting him from Hugh's attack. Long story short, summer vacation has arrived. Asako and Mayuko invite Ushio to go on vacation to the beach because Asako's grandparents own a restaurant by the beach. Tora also went there and enjoyed his vacation so much that he wanted to forget his dispute with Ushio. Then Ushio caught a little boy who was seen burying his belongings using the beach sand. Then Asako and Mayuko came there and let the little boy go. Ushio asked about the information about the little boy to Asako's grandparents. They explained that the boy was named Tatsuya, who used to be a good boy, but he had changed since his mother died. Meanwhile, Tora stopped playing in the water in the middle of the sea because he realized a yokai presence. The yokai called Tora with his ancient name, Nagatabamaru. It turned out that the person who called Tora was a marine guard yokai named Umizato. He intends to ask Tora to help fight a yokai who is endangering the waters named Ayakashi. Ayakashi is formed from the souls of those who died in the ocean. Ayakashi is very fierce and can attack humans and yokai, but Umizato's strength is not strong enough to deal with it. Suddenly Ayakashi appeared in front of them both. Meanwhile, Tatsuya is seen being disturbed by 3 men and destroying his toys on the beach. Asako, who saw it, immediately helped and hit the 3 men. Then Tatsuya told Asako that the toy they had broken was a gift from his mother. After hearing that, Asako wanted to repair Tatsuya's toy. On the other hand, Tora is fighting against Ayokashi, but because Ayokashi's body is filled with oil, Tora's lightning attack cannot touch him. The giant Ayokashi even swallowed Tora. Umizato tried to pull Tora out of Ayokashi's mouth but couldn't because there was so much oil in the mouth that it was slippery. Tora asks Umizato to find Ushio and asks for his help. Meanwhile, Asako seems to have finished repairing Tatsuya's toy, so he looks happy. Tatsuya then invited Asako to play and took a boat to the cave in the sea. Suddenly Ayokashi appears and attacks their boat. Ushio, who was sunbathing on the beach, immediately ran because he felt someone calling his name from a distance. Then Umizato appears and tells him that Tora is currently in danger. When he was about to help Tora, Mayuko told him that Asako was in danger too. When Mayuko called Ushio as Aotsuki, Umizato realized something. When Ushio arrived at Asako's grandfather's shop, he received a call from Asako, who was in Ayokashi's stomach. After calling Ushio, they are attacked by the little yokai inside Ayokashi's body. Luckily Tora was there and saved them. While Ushio and Umizato seem to be heading towards the middle of the sea, he manages to find Ayokashi, but Ayokashi is in his own dimension called Kekai. Ayokashi's Kekai is so strong that Ushio's holy spear cannot penetrate his dimension. Ushio tried tearing Ayokashi's Kekai and then into his stomach. While there, Tora seemed to ask Asako if Ushio would come to help them, but Asako, who was afraid, punched Tora in the face. Because Tora didn't fight back, Asako thought Tora was a tame monster. Then she told Tatsuya that Ushio also didn't have a mother just like him. While Asako was talking, suddenly they were pulled into Ayokashi's body, which was much deeper until Asako fainted. Tora tries to save Asako and Tatsuya, but it turns out that in Ayokashi's stomach, there is a kekai that can eliminate the power of other yokai. Then Ushio comes and saves the three of them, but Asako is in danger because her hands are only tied to Tatsuya's toy. Then Ushio asked Tatsuya to hold Asako's hand, but Tatsuya was afraid. Ushio encouraged Tatsuya to dare to help Asako, but when Tatsuya managed to grasp Asako's hand, his grip slipped. Suddenly the holy spear moved by itself and stuck in Ayokashi's body until his body was destroyed. After Ayokashi was destroyed, all the souls of those who died in the sea were freed. Ushio immediately thanked Tora for saving Asako and Tatsuya. Arriving at the beach, they decided to go straight home. When they were going home, Tatsuya also came with a happy face, and he had turned into a good boy. Tatsuya gave his favorite toy to Ushio as a memento. They then parted ways with Tatsuya. The next day Tora was confused to see Ushio, who was looking for the money his father gave him. Ushio and Tora then went to the middle of the city and met one of the yokai Kamaitachi men named Reishin, who suddenly attacked them. Ushio manages to bring down the yokai and prepares to kill him, but a female yokai named Kagari immediately pleads with Ushio to release Reishin because they only want to test whether Ushio can use the holy spear. Ushio and Tora were invited to go to their house in the forest. There the two Kamaitachi asked Ushio to help kill their brother, Juro. At first Ushio refused and thought the two yokai were evil because they wanted to kill their own brother, but Reishin showed the human body pieces that Juro had devoured. Tora was invited out by Kagari because Reishin wanted to talk alone with Ushio. When the two of them were about to fight, Tora suddenly felt a yokai coming there, but Kagari still cut Tora's hand. Reishin said to Ushio that his younger brother named Juro was very grudged against humans because the three of them had been expelled by humans from their homes. He also said that Kamaitachi should not kill humans and should only inflict minor wounds to chase them away. Their wounds can be healed with Kagari's medicine. Because Juro has violated the rules, then he must die. Then Juro came there to say farewell to his two older siblings. Juro says that he will kill the humans who have destroyed their homes without remaining because humans will destroy their homes again with the Toll Road project. Ushio, who felt annoyed, immediately attacked Juro, but he was hit by Juro's tail so that he couldn't move. Just as Juro was about to attack Ushio again, Tora came and stabbed Juro's body, causing him to run away. Ushio, who couldn't move, was finally healed using medicine from Kagari. After Ushio and Kagari were treated, the four of them immediately chased after Juro because he would kill the Toll Road project workers. While on the way, Kagari told Ushio that Juro was a good yokai who had never even had the heart to hurt humans, but he changed since the humans destroyed their house. When they arrived at where Juro was, Juro hit the four of them with a falling cliff. Ushio and Tora could still withstand the debris, but the two Kamaitachi were hit by a car, causing the fuel from the car to spill onto the road. Ushio asks Tora to help the two Kamaitachi, while he confronts Juro and tries to resuscitate him. When Juro realized his mistake, the workers came and hit him with stones. They were scared when they saw Juro angry, and accidentally, one of the workers dropped his cigarette. This ignited the spilt fuel, causing a huge fire, and the workers fled. When he saw his two siblings hit by a car, Juro helped them lift the car. But their strength is still lacking until Ushio asks the workers for help. The workers then ventured to help them. Eventually, the two Kamaitachi were rescued before the car exploded. Ushio told Juro that he would find a new place for the three of them, but Juro instead attacked Ushio, so Ushio was forced to kill Juro. It turns out that Juro deliberately attacks Ushio so that he can be killed and that he can atone for all his mistakes. Meanwhile, at the Kohame school, it appears that the elders are scolding the four monks who failed to snatch the holy spear from Ushio's hands. Then came a great monk who immediately scolded the elders because their job was to protect the holy spear and whoever inherited it. Before coming to the shrine, the great monk had a chance to meet their leader, a grandmother named Hizaki Mikado and referred to as the second generation Oyakume. She said that the holy spear will choose its own user, meaning that Ushio was the one who was chosen to use the spear. The great monk then gathered all the monks in the temple and ordered that they would watch over Ushio and let Tora be by his side. On the other hand, Ushio and Tora are taking a hot bath together. Then Ushio heard a woman's voice singing sweetly. Ushio was curious and looked for the source of the sound until he managed to find a woman named Saya. She was soaking in the hot springs too. Then Tora came over to Ushio so that Saya could notice their presence. Saya was shocked, covered her body with a cloth, and left from there. Ushio panicked because he didn't want to be seen as a perverted man, but Tora said that woman was not an ordinary human. When Saya arrived at her house, her father and grandmother had been waiting for her presence. They immediately ordered Saya to work and put her in a room. Her job is to accompany a female yokai named Omamori in the form of a child to accompany her to play. Omamori said she wanted to get out of the place, but Saya replied that they couldn't do that. Then Omamori smelled the human scent of Ushio and Tora from Saya's body. She said maybe the two of them could get her out of there. The next day, Ushio accidentally saw Saya walking unsteadily and almost got hit by a car. Ushio immediately helped her, and then one of the merchants there said that Saya came from the Takatori family, who owned most of the land in the area. Ushio then carried Saya to go home. On the way, Saya asked to get off and wanted to walk alone. She said she purposely went out to look for Ushio, even though she could see where Tora was. She said that their family could see the yokai world. However, because Saya's condition was still weak, Ushio immediately carried her again while running until they arrived at her house. On the other hand, Takatori is talking with some of his subordinates about the success of his business. Then he thought that all of his success was thanks to Omamori, who he locked up so that it brought fortune to his family. When Saya got home, Takatori immediately went to see her and scolded her. Takatori said that strangers often escorted Saya home because she always fainted on the road, which embarrassed the Takatori family greatly. He also kicked Ushio out, but Saya begged Takatori to let her and Ushio talk for an hour alone. Then Takatori and her grandmother allowed them. Saya says that her mother has the power to see yokai like her. Before her mother died, she advised that their power should be used as a mediator between humans and yokai so that they could coexist. It turns out that Takatori married her mother because he wanted to use her power to protect the Takatori family's wealth. Saya tells about Omamori, who has given success to the Takatori family for generations. Then she took Ushio to the room where Omamori was. Upon entering the room, Tora felt the extraordinary kekai power that the Takatori family had installed so that Omamori could not escape. Omamori wanted to meet them to ask them both for help so she could get out of there. On the other hand, Takatori and Saya's grandmother entered the room, but Takatori panicked when he saw the holy spear that Ushio was carrying. When Takatori was young, Omamori once said that one day someone would come with a holy spear that would free her and that person would destroy the Takatori family. Meanwhile, in Omamori's room, Tora warns that if they destroy the kekai, it will be very dangerous because it can wipe out all the house's occupants, including Omamori. But Omamori, who has been confined for 200 years, is willing to die. She was happy because she could meet Saya and Saya's mother, so she had friends to play with. Omamori did everything for Saya, so she wouldn't have to be locked up in the room like her mother used to be. Suddenly Takatori immediately entered Omamori's room and attacked Ushio until he fell. But when Ushio intends to destroy the kekai, Saya stops him because she doesn't want Omamori to perish. When Ushio is off guard, Takatori's men come and catch him. Luckily Tora managed to save Ushio and stood in front of Omamori to protect her so that she would not be destroyed when the kekai was destroyed. Knowing this, Saya asked Ushio to immediately destroy the kekai. Ushio immediately slashed the kekai and made the Takatori family's wealth disappear instantly and signaled that the Takatori family would be destroyed after that. After the kekai was destroyed, Omamori immediately left the place. Ushio worries that Saya's life will be hard after her family is destroyed. However, Tora pulled Ushio to ask him to leave immediately because he had a chance to tell Omamori that she would continue to accompany Saya to repay the favor of being with her all this time. Then Ushio turned to Saya and saw Omamori beside her. This is the end of Ushio and Tora Part 1.